What's up, everybody? Philly Soccer Page Postgame Show. I'm Mike Servedio here with Matt DeGeorge today. Thanks for standing in.
Absolutely.
Union win 3-0 over a fairly hapless Montreal Impact squad. Not hapless? Felt hapless.
They didn't have a lot of haps.
No,
Let's put it that
pretty
way.
hapless going forward, at least.
Piatti-less, hapless, yeah. Sure,
Piatti-less,
we could
yes,
do that.
important. Goals from Corey Burke, Jaron Montero, and Alejandro Bedoya to seal the game. Corey Burke scores 10 minutes into the game on a Montreal team that seemed like they came in probably to sit in and get at a point and probably counterattack. How big is that first goal?
Huge. It's something that I kind of asked just about anybody who would listen in the locker room afterwards. A really huge goal because with Montreal, they were really organized early. It's the four banks of two. They're going to sit back. They're going to try and launch counters. And when you have that first goal, like Jim Curtin said, it forces them to do something different. It forces them to have to play out of the back a little bit more. It's going to open some spaces, and that's what I think you saw. And the Union really, in that first half, controlled the game for the most part. Jim Curtin talked about for the first 30 minutes it was the way he wanted it, and then maybe it flagged a little bit after that. But they still come out with a 2-0 result after at halftime, and I think that goal softening up that team is huge.
A couple of tweaks to the lineup today. Saw kind of a resort back to the 4-2-3-1 that we've seen in the past. Maybe a little bit different than that even still. You had Jamiro Montero pushed up a little higher onto Piet. The flexibility that Jim Curtin has instilled into this midfield is not something that we've seen before.
It's shocking. I mean, it really is. The idea that they played, I would kind of characterize it as more of a 4-1-4-1 today, maybe?
Yeah.
I guess you can consider that. But even that's not right because you have Montero's pretty much further up the field. I thought Samuel Piet was the best player / really only good player on the Impact today.
Yeah.
I thought Daniel Lovitz was okay, and not just because he's a Philly guy. But Piet it really is their danger man because he's able to win tackles and distribute from deep and able to kind of get guys involved. And without Piatti, it had to be stopping him, and you were going to stop a lot of what they were going to do. And Montero did that. I find it interesting how much this midfield especially has bought into this idea of this kind of flexibility, and it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. I don't even know necessarily if you can even think about it as this is the Union's best midfield yet because you're able to play these matchups. I don't know if you have a best midfield.
No, I think that's the thing about it is that you can play to these matchups in a game like this where you figure you're going to have the ball a little bit more as the Union at home against Montreal. You're able to start a guy like Ilsinho who's tricky in tight spaces. You're able to get Brendan Aronson into good areas too. So it's really fascinating to watch them play these matchups. I think Harris Medunjanin had a really strong game. We were talking about that just before we started, and I think his ability to pass from deep, huge against a team like Montreal.
Absolutely, especially when you take out Austin Trusty, who is a good distributor as a center back. I think Elliott's a little bit better of a distributor, and Mark McKenzie brings a lot between the lines in terms of how he distributes. But certainly, Aurelien Collin is not the distributor that Austin Trusty is.
No.
And so if you're going to play those balls over the top, then you need Harris in there. And especially the way the Impact started this game, they were bunkering pretty tight. So you had you probably had 20 to 30 yards between where the Union was getting the ball, where they were allowing Harris to get the ball, and where your runners were going to be. And Harris can pick out those balls all day.
Yeah.
And as long as you have that, that's a way to kind of break the lines and then cause them to scramble a little bit. It created a couple of corners, I think, early, a couple of, kind of looks and half chances. Certainly created the last goal by Alejandro Bedoya with him playing that ball over to Kai Wagner. So, he is, and one of my Twitter followers pointed this out, it's also his defensive issues are mitigated a little bit because you have Montero and you have Bedoya. You have Aronson in there who maybe isn't the most defensive guy, but he's going to run and run and run because he's 18 years old and he can run all day. You give him like 2 pixie sticks and he can run all day. So I think that they're starting to find that right balance between how much they want to press, how much they want to sit, how to beat teams that are bunkered in, how to beat teams that have more of the ball. They're starting to find those balances on a game-by-game basis.
We talked about this being a pretty big stretch for the Union. They've got 6 of 8 at home. This was the first one of those matches. I mean, you look at the stretch of games and the teams that are coming here, they have a chance to pick up a considerable amount of points, and they should.
The Philadelphia Union, and this is weird to say, have a chance to really be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And I think I said this on the podcast earlier in the season, that they have the chance to be the third or fourth team in the East. But when you look at the way the schedule breaks for them, they have the 3 points that they get today. They travel to Vancouver next week, and it's going to be a little bit of a different squad in Vancouver out of necessity. But this is a Vancouver team that won its first game of the season on Tuesday. It's not out of the realm of possibility to go there and get a point, maybe more.
Yeah.
You then come home for Cincinnati, which has been struggling and that you've already beaten. You come home for New England, which is bottom in the East. Then it's at Toronto. Seattle comes here. Those 2 games are challenging, but then your reward for that is a Portland team that hasn't won a game yet and a Colorado team that hasn't won a game yet, and by the way, shipped 4 goals to Chicago today.
Yeah.
So you have the opportunity over the 8-game stretch that started today to win 5 or 6 games. I mean, that possibility exists. And if the Union goes something like 5-2-1 or 6-1-1 over that stretch, you're going to see them be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference standings as we head into the summer, which is the potential that they have. And I think they're playing like it, and they also have the character of a team that's that good. When you look at what they did today, Mark McKenzie having an appendectomy at 6 o'clock in the morning, according to Jim Curtin, today, and being ruled out. You have Kai Wagner getting a red card, Andre Blake going down with what looks like a groin injury that'll keep him out for a little bit. This is a team that is talented and is also winning games because they're just beating teams, and they're out playing, they're out hustling. It's a little weird.
It is very strange.
This good.
I know, and it feels really weird to stand here and be positive with you after all of these years of not doing that.
It doesn't feel as weird to have Jim Curtin come up to the podium and say that he's not happy after a 3-0 win. I think we've had that before.
Yeah.
I think that's happened before. But the reasons behind it, they make sense. And they've done this year, and you haven't gotten anything out of Fafa Picault yet.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten anything out of Sergio Santos yet.
Yeah.
And you're going to get stuff out of them. I mean, those 2 guys are going to produce for you eventually. You're going to have a time where the strikers carry this team to a few wins in a row, and you haven't even gotten there yet. And I think that I don't even think Andre Blake has really stolen a game for you yet this year.
No, he hasn't.
And he's good for a couple of those years. So there's a lot of elements that this team has a lot of potential to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Eastern Conference. Maybe not the best team on any given day yet. They could get there, but not yet. But they could be the team that consistently grinds out results and ends up with a home game.
It certainly feels that way. I do think a couple of negative aspects to take away tonight. Kai Wagner's red card on 87 minutes, just no reason to make that tackle.
No, and he had played really well, set up the Bedoya goal. He's been really good this season. It was a yellow instantly, and just the way he flew in there, it was one of those where it was going to look worse on replay, and it looked worse on replay.
Yeah, it did.
I think you would hope that he only gets
the one game,
suspension.
but you won't be surprised if he gets the second.
But if the
hopefully it won't be the Marco Fabian thing where he gets it 2 weeks later. But
right, but if Fabian gets an extra game for that, then
you have to think
he legitimately could have broken Chouinard's leg there. So
yeah. I was disappointing to see, and you'll hope that Andre Blake's groin injury is not that serious. Talking to Jim Curtin, he didn't feel like it was as bad as it could be, but also that's probably something that's going to keep him out a week or 2 at least.
Yeah, I don't see him going to Vancouver next week.
No.
I think he can be smart with that trip.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a little bit of balance in the international spots this week, because that's part of the reason why I would have to confirm this, but I'm pretty sure that's why Freese was on the bench as opposed to Carlos Coronel. So next week you're going to have to sort that out a little bit differently as to how you're doing your internationals before you go to Vancouver. But that's one of the things I have to figure out.
2 more quick ones before we go. Jamiro Montero scores from the penalty spot. Pretty well taken penalty. Sent Evan Bush the wrong way. We've seen Marco Fabian miss twice. Is it Montero's to go forward?
I think it's going to be whoever wants it on a certain day. I think you'd be comfortable with him taking penalties. I don't know if we've seen Harris take penalties.
No, I don't think we
No,
have.
I wouldn't be shocked if he could deliver a good
Yeah.
penalty. I don't think it's Bedoya's, but I would trust any of the strikers. I think Corey Burke's a pretty good penalty kick
Yeah.
taker. I'm sure Fafa could do the job.
Yeah,
And,
I think Fafa would have grabbed it if he was on the pitch at the time.
yeah.
Montero grabbed it pretty quickly though, and he told us in the locker room he's never missed a penalty.
Yeah. So,
So-
hey, I'd go with it. I mean, he sent Bush the wrong way, and he's pretty well slotted home.
Yeah. Last one before we go. The pitch is in not so good shape.
No, it's
and there's a
not.
Bethlehem Steel game going on right now as we're talking. Wow.
It's really.
I've
and,
never seen the pitch here look this bad.
It's surprising. My understanding is that it's something new. It's a new grass that they've laid that hasn't had time to set all that
Yeah.
much. The grounds crew here at Talon has been regarded as one of the best in
Yeah.
the league for a long time, which is one of the reasons why it's surprising that
Yeah.
they've been having these issues. But there's been divots. There's a really good video that a fan submitted of Evan Bush ripping out an entire sheet of
Yeah.
sod, which is not a good look. So yeah, I think that it's surprising that it's that way. And
Yeah.
we'll see. There's going to be a lot of games on this pitch. I mean, there's going to be five more games of just the Union by the end of May. So hopefully it's something they figure out sooner rather than later.
We'll hope so. I think we'll wrap up there. Union win 3-0 over Montreal. Thanks to Matt George for joining us today. We'll be back here in 2 weeks when Cincinnati's in town.